Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum. Today we will be looking at the terms used in genetics and Mendelian genetics. And before going into the details of the terms and Mendelian genetics, we will look briefly at the inheritance of red colors, red color of hairs, uh, and then we will move towards the common terms used in genetics and then Mendelian genetics. So, red color of hairs has been a symbol of beauty and fascination. So, if you look at the picture of this baby girl, she has red hairs, and in addition to the red hairs, she also has some red spots on the skin. So, this red color is because of a mutation in the melanocortin 1 receptor. So we will talk about the receptor in the next slide. So let us have a look at the characters, historical characters. Queen Boudica, Mary Magdalene, Queen Elizabeth I, and a character in the novel The Birth of Venus, the goddess of Venus. All these characters were having red hair color. So we will not go into the details. If you are interested, you can just read in the book. So how the color of hairs become red? So this is caused because of the melanin, and most of you may also know that melanin is a pigment, and that pigment is produced by the melanocytes within the melanosomes, and in a reaction, this is done in a reaction that is catalyzed by tyrosinase enzyme during the conversion of tyrosine into the dopa. So melanin actually comes in two primary forms. First one is the eumelanin and the other is pheomelanin. The eumelanin is black or brown in color, whereas pheomelanin is red or yellow in color. So when melanocyte stimulating hormone uh, binds to its receptor, so receptor is present on the surface of the melanocytes. So for example, this is the receptor, and melanocyte stimulating hormone binds to the receptor. Then what happens? So this binding actually starts or triggers a cascade of reaction. So the cascade of reaction then results in the production of eumelanin if MC normal MCR1 receptor copy is present. But if a variant copy is present, then the binding of MSH will result in the production of pheomelanin. So this is the basic mechanism. We will not discuss this in detail, but just keep in mind that when the receptor binds to the cell surface, and it has the receptor for that binding, then the binding of the receptor triggers a chain of reactions, and then at the DNA level certain proteins are upregulated and some are downregulated, and then it results finally in the production of different molecules that will then result in the production of the color. So how hair color is determined? So there are two main features, two factors that are causing the hair color of the person. So first factor is the amount of melanin produced, that how much melanin is produced. So if more melanin is produced, then the color of the hairs will be darker, and if less melanin is produced, then the color of the hairs will be lighter. And second factor is the relative amount of eumelanin and pheomelanin. So if though both types of melanin, there is a relative amount of these two molecules. So if more eumelanin will be present, then color of the hairs will be black or brown. Whereas if more pheomelanin, relatively more amount of pheomelanin will be present, then the color of the hair will be red or blonde. Melanin also has some benefits. So major benefit of the melanin is that it protects the skin against the harmful effects of the sunlight, whereas the people who are having red hairs are usually also usually have fair skin, and they are particularly susceptible to certain types of cancer. So the people having fair skin and red hairs, they can protect themselves from the harmful effects of sunlight by uh, avoiding the sunlight. So if they will avoid the sunlight, the consequences will be less severe. But if they are mostly going to the sunlight, then they can develop different types of skin cancer. So this is the benefit of melanin, that it protects against the harmful effects of sunlight. So now coming towards the inheritance of red hairs, how it is inherited. So in the beginning of the 20th century, uh, the inheritance of red hair has been has long been a subject of scientific debate, and two individuals, Charles and Gertrude Davenport, they suggested that the red hair is recessive to black and brown colors, and subsequently the other researchers contradicted their conclusion, and they suggested that inheritance of red color of hairs is not recessive, it is dominant, and it is inherited dominantly. And this controversy lasted for several years. Some people were saying that this is recessive, and some were saying that it is not recessive, it is dominant. But when in 1993 people were working on the fur color in mice, they discovered a receptor known as the melanocortin 1 receptor, and they showed that when this receptor is activated, then it increases the production of black pheomelanin, and it decreases the production of the red pheomelanin, and this results in the black or brown fur color in the mice. So the same gene was also found in human beings, and this gene was located on the chromosome number 16 in human genome. Uh, and when this gene is mutated in humans, then the humans have red hair. And most people with red hair carry two defective copies of the MC1R. So this means that when two copies are needed for the phenotype, it means that this trait is recessive. And when two copies are not present, then the color of the hair will not be red. So, and this was the inheritance pattern, recessive pattern of inheritance, that was originally proposed by Charles and Davenport. So they both was suggesting that the inheritance of red hairs is recessive. So uh, but uh, sometimes people have only one copy of the defective MC1R, and in that case uh, they have a milder phenotype, and that milder phenotype is that they have lighter red color. So from 10 to 20% of the redheads, they possess only a single copy of the mutant receptor, and this was also a problem because if a phenotype is recessive, then two copies are needed to show its effect. But in this case, there is one defective copy, but the color of the hair has changed. So the people with a single mutant copy of the gene tend to have lighter hair color, and then those who harbor the mutant copies, uh, they have, if they have both mutant copies, they have darker red, and if they have only one mutant copy, they have lighter red color. So this is recessive, but it can be like a co-dominant or incomplete dominant type thing. So people are having an intermediate phenotype. So this is not exactly the recessive, but when two copies will be present, then red color will result, and when one copy of the mutant allele is present, then color will be lighter. So now coming towards the frequency of mutations in MC1R. So there is a great variation among different human populations. So if you look at the different ethnic groups, among the Africans and Asian descent people, uh, the mutations for red hairs are very uncommon, and most of the people in these areas have black color. But approximately 40% of the people from the northern part of the UK, they carry at least one mutant copy of the gene for red hair. So those people have light red color of the uh, hairs. So now let us move towards the Mendelian genetics. So Mendel selected pea plant Pisum sativum in his studies of heredity, and he selected seven characters: uh, seed color, seed shape, seed coat, flower position, stem length, and pod color and pod shape. So all these seven characters were selected by Mendel because they were very clear in pea plant. So there are some other characters also, but they are not, they are having variation. So he selected only those traits that were having less variation, and there were clear cut two phenotypes. So Mendel's approach to the study of heredity was effective because of several reasons. Uh, then the first one is that his choice of the pea plant. His experimental subject was pea plant. So this is one of the reasons that his approach was effective. So the selection of pea plant offered advantages for the genetic investigations. So the second point is that plant is easy to cultivate. Mendel was having a monastic garden and greenhouse at his disposal, so he was using those facilities to cultivate the pea plants. So third point is the pea plants produce many offsprings because they are seeds, and a single plant can produce many seeds, and this allowed Mendel to detect meaningful mathematical ratios in the trait that he observed in the progeny. And if progeny is not huge, then huge amount of progeny is giving him the ratios. But if he has used some other organism, then it might be difficult for Mendel. It have been difficult for Mendel to uh, give the rules of heredity. The fourth point is that the large number of varieties of pea plants. So pea plant has large variety, and they were available to Mendel also. So this was also crucial because these varieties differed in various traits, and they were genetically pure, because genetically pure plants were needed for this type of experiments. Otherwise he would not have been lucky to give the rules of heredity. So Mendel was therefore able to begin with plants of variable known genetic makeup. So much of the Mendel's success can be attributed to seven characteristics. We have already talked in the previous slide that he chose for study the characteristics, seven characteristics, and he avoided characteristics that display a range of variation. So because variation, at that time it was difficult to study variation, a long range of variation. So instead he focused his attention to those that exist in two easily differentiated forms, and such characteristics were white versus gray seed coats, round versus wrinkled seeds, and inflated versus constricted pods. And finally, Mendel was successful because he adopted the experimental approach, uh, and he used his results using mathematics. So Mendel formulated hypotheses based on his initial observations, then conducted additional crosses and tested the hypothesis. So he was adept in seeing the patterns in detail. So if he would not have been a mathematician, then it would have been difficult for him so to perform this work. And he was patient enough and thorough in conducting his experiments for almost 10 years before attempting to write up his results. So 10 years is a very long period, but at that time there were no hurries in publishing the results. So they were thoroughly conducting the experiments. They were patiently observing uh, the results, and they were conducting and testing the hypothesis again and again, and it took almost 10 years for formulating the laws of heredity. Uh, Sorry. So now let us have a um, look at the genetical terms that will be mostly that we will be mostly using during this course. So first one is gene. So what is a gene? A genetic factor that helps determine a character. It is a region in the DNA molecule that is responsible for giving a trait. So and the next one is allele, and one of two or more alternate forms of a gene. So allele is actually the alternate form of a gene. So each individual has two copies, one inherited from father and one inherited from mother. So they are genes, but they are two alternate forms of the same gene. So if we will be talking about the gene, then we will say that this is a region in the DNA that helps to give rise a phenotype. And allele is an alternate form that is present on both chromosomes. So next one is locus. So specific place on a chromosome occupied by an allele. So any position in the DNA molecule is known as the locus. And next one is genotype. So set of alleles possessed by an individual organism is known as the genotype. So set of allele is one allele from the father and one allele from the mother. So when we put them together, then they are known as the genotype. And next one is the heterozygote. So what is a heterozygote? An individual organism possessing two different alleles at a locus. If a different nucleotide is inherited from father and at the same position different nucleotide is inherited from the mother, so that individual is having two different nucleotides at the same locus. So that individual will be heterozygote for that position. And in the alternate to this heterozygote is the homozygote. And homozygote is an individual organism possessing two of the same alleles at a locus. If same allele is inherited from both parents, then the individual will be homozygous. And now the next one is a phenotype or trait. It is the appearance or manifestation of a character. So the thing that is visible up till now, just keep in mind that phenotype is the appearance, and at the appearance, at any appearance in an individual, there is a coding system in the DNA. So that is genotype, but the outward appearance is the phenotype, or it is the trait. And next one is a character or a characteristic. It is an attribute or a feature. For example, tallness is a character, round shape is a character, wrinkle shape is a character. So these are the attributes or features. And there can be a character can be for example, yellow color is a character, and yellow and green, they are two phenotypes of a character. So these are a few terms. We will also be looking at some other terms also when we will be moving forward in this course, but these are the most common things that we will be talking about mostly during our course. So keep in mind the definitions of all these terms. They are very important for a genetics student. So if you look at this figure, so at each locus a diploid organism possesses two alleles, and they are located on different homologous chromosomes. So if we look at this R allele, on one chromosome is capital R and on another chromosome it is small r. So because, for example, these two chromosomes are in a belong to a single person, so on one chromosome the person is having a capital R, on the other chromosome the person is having small r. So this capital R is an allele and this small r is also an allele. But when we will write is like this, capital R, small r, then this is the genotype of that person at this particular position. And if this person will be having capital R on the alternate chromosome also, then its genotype will become capital R, and this is the genotype. So this genotype, capital R small r, will be heterozygous. This is known as the heterozygous genotype, whereas the capital R genotype is the homozygous genotype. Similarly, the person may have a small r on this chromosome, so then the genotype will be small r, and this is also a homozygous genotype. So always keep in mind that every person inherits uh, one allele from father and one allele from mother. They can be same and they can be different. If they are different, then the individual is heterozygous, and if they are same, they can be the alternate forms. So if one alternate form is present, then that alternate form will be, for example, as in this example, capital R is a form, alternate form. So if capital R is present, both capital R's are present, so it is homozygous. If both small R's are present, then even then that is homozygous. But if it is coding, small r is coding something, then it will appear only if both alleles are present. So then we will say that this trait is a recessive trait, because the presence of one capital R, if this is for roundness, then one presence of one capital R allele will give its effect, and the seed will be, if we talk about the pea plant, seed will be round. But if both are small r's, then seed will not be round and seed will become wrinkled. So this will be a recessive trait then. So now there is an obvious but important concept. Only the alleles of the genotypes are inherited. So you should keep in mind that only the alleles of the genotype are inherited. Although the phenotype is determined, at least to some extent, by genotype, organisms do not transmit their phenotypes to the next generations. Phenotypes are not transmitted, only the alleles are transmitted. Even genotypes are not transmitted. Alleles are transmitted, and then alleles again join together to form a genotype. So the distinction between genotype and phenotype is one of the most important principle of modern genetics. So this is a very important thing, and it should be in your mind. Now let us move towards the monohybrid crosses. And monohybrid crosses reveal the principle of segregation and the concept of dominance. So Mendel started with 34 varieties of pea plants that he would use in his pea plants, and he spent 2 years selecting those varieties that he would use in the experiment. So the selection process took 2 years. From he took 7 varieties from 34 varieties. 7 characteristics were selected from those 34 varieties of pea plants. So he verified that each variety was pure breeding. So homozygous, pure breeding, pure breeds mean that homozygous for each trait. So if he's saying, we are saying that pure breed having green pod color, so it means that green color genes for green color or alleles for green color are homozygously present. So similarly for all the other traits, so they were pure breeds. By growing the plant for 2 generations and confirming that all offsprings were the same as their parents. So if you have a plant and you started growing for a few generations, then you will get the pure breeds. So he then carried out a number of crosses between different varieties, and on the basis of those crosses he revealed the principles of inheritance. So if we look at the method, because pea plant is self pollinating. So he was artificially pollinating the plants and according to his needs. So to cross different varieties of pea plants, Mendel removed the anthers from the flowers, and moving the anthers from the flowers and then shifting artificially to the stigma of other plant. So, and he dusted the stigma with pollen from different plants. So he was cross pollinating artificially. So the pollen fertilized ova, which develop into seeds, and then seeds grew into plants. So in this way, he was performing experiments according to his needs. And pea plants are mostly self-pollinating. So he was artificially crossing the plants, and cross pollination was being done by himself. So although pea plants are normally self-fertilizing, so Mendel conducted crosses between different plants, and he opened the buds before the anthers were fully developed, and removing the anthers and then dusting the stigma with pollen from different plants anthers. So Mendel began by studying the monohybrid crosses, and monohybrid crosses are the crosses between parents that differed in a single trait, in a single characteristics. So they were different. They were differing only in single traits. So in one experiment, Mendel crossed pure breeding homozygous pea plants for round seeds with one that was pure breeding for wrinkled seeds. So now you know that what are the pure breeds. So this first generation of cross is known as the parental generation, P generation. And when two pure breeds are crossed, this is the round color, this is the round shape seeds, and these are the wrinkled seeds. So when this parental generation is crossed, then he got all round seeds in the F1 generation. So when they self-fertilized in the F1 generation, all the plants are with round seeds. So then Mendel intercrossed these F1 generation plants, and then he in the F2 he got a ratio of 3:1, and it means that three seeds were round, whereas one seed was with a wrinkled shape. So this was the main ratio, and he concluded that the traits of the parent plants do not blend. And although F1 plants display the phenotype of one parent, both traits are passed to the F2 generation in a ratio of 3:1. So in the F1 generation, this wrinkledness of the seed was hidden, but is it again came into the F2, and uh, he made different conclusions from these results. So if we look at the progeny, after crossing the two varieties in the P generation, Mendel observed the offsprings that resulted from the cross, and in regard to the seed characteristics such as seed shape, the phenotype develops as soon as the seed matures, because the seed traits are determined by the newly formed embryos within the seeds. Uh, so if we look at this figure, in the parental generation, each plant possessed two alleles coding for the character. So these are the two capital R in the round seed, and similarly small r for the second pure breed, that is recessive. So at the time of gamete formation, they become separate from each other. So two alleles in each plant separated when gametes were formed, and one allele went into each gamete. So after fertilization in the F1, all the plants were having capital or small r genotype and round shape. So when gametes were formed, when they self-crossed the F1 generation plants, so at the time of gamete formation, capital R and small r, they separated in gametes, and then they were self-fertilized. Then in the F2 generation, there were two phenotypes again, round, round, and then wrinkled. So when a capital R is present, then the phenotype is always round. But when no capital R is present and only small r are present, alleles are present, then the shape is wrinkled. So the self-fertilization experiment gave the results in F3 when F2 were again self-fertilized. So when round was crossed with round, it gave only round seeds. But when heterozygous plants were crossed, then they gave the same ratio of 3:1. And when wrinkled seed plants were self-crossed, then they only produced the wrinkled seeds. So this is the experiment conducted by Mendel, and what this monohybrid cross revealed. So first thing is that the F1 plants display the phenotype of only one parent. So in the parental generation, both phenotypes were present, but they were pure breeds. So in the F1, there is only one phenotype, and it belongs to only one parent, that is round. So they must inherit genetic factors from both parents. So because they transmit both phenotypes to the F2 generation, so if you look at the F2 generation, both phenotypes were present at the ratio of 3:1. 3 were round and one was wrinkled. So the presence of both round and wrinkled seeds in the F2 could be explained only if the F1 plants possessed both round and wrinkled genetic factors that they inherited from the P plant. Sorry. So if there is no transfer of the factors from both parents, then it was not possible to have it in the F2 generation. But if we are getting the trait in the F2 generation, then it means that in the F1 generation there is something that is inherited from the pure breed of wrinkled plant. So that is now transferred from the F1 generation to the F2 generation. So he concluded that each plant must therefore possess two genetic factors encoding a trait or character. So this was the one conclusion. So second conclusion was that the two alleles in each plant separate when gametes are formed, and one allele goes into each gamete, so they segregate independently. So when two gametes fuse together to produce a zygote, the allele from the male parent unites with the allele from the female parent to produce the genotype of the offspring. So therefore Mendel's F1 plants inherited an capital R allele from the round seed plant and small r allele from the wrinkled seed plant. So from both parents one allele is inherited. However, only the trait encoded by the round allele, capital R allele, was observed in the F1, and all the F1 progeny had round seeds. So those traits that appear unchanged in the F1 heterozygous offsprings call them the dominant, and those traits that disappeared in the F1 heterozygous plants or offsprings, he called that they are recessive. So the phenotype that was present in the F1 generation offsprings, so in the even in the heterozygotes, Mendel called them the dominant, and the traits that were not present in the F1 generation, so he called them the recessive. So when dominant and recessive alleles are present together, the recessive allele is masked or suppressed and it cannot show its effect. But the allele for that phenotype is present, and when in the next generation it will combine with the same allele, identical allele, then it will show its effect recessively. So next conclusion, third important conclusion was the concept of dominance, and Mendel derived from his mono hybrid experiments, crosses of monohybrid experiments. So Mendel's fourth conclusion is that two alleles of an individual plant separate with equal probability into the gametes. So probability is equal. When plants of F1 with genotype capital R small r produce gametes, half of the gametes receive capital R allele for round seeds, and half received the small r allele for wrinkled seeds. So the gametes then paired randomly to produce the genotypes in equal proportions among the F2, and these genotypes are capital R, capital R, capital R small r, and small r small r. So in F2 they have different ratios. So because round is dominant over wrinkled, there were 3 round progeny in the F2 for every 1 wrinkled progeny in the F2. So this is 3:1. So 3 plants are round and 1 is wrinkled. So the 3:1 ratio of round to wrinkled progeny that Mendel observed in the F2 could be obtained only if the two alleles of a genotype separated into the gametes with equal probability. If they are not having the equal probability, then this ratio would have not been appeared in the results of Mendel's crosses. So now if we compare the principles of segregation and independent assortment, if you look at this table, so the Mendel's first principle, the law of segregation, is that each individual organism possesses 2 alleles encoding a trait, and second point is that alleles separate when gametes are formed. So this is happening at this stage of anaphase 1. So alleles separate in equal proportions. This is also happening during the anaphase 1. And if you look at the principle of independent assortment, which is the second law, so alleles at different loci separate independently, and this is also happening at the stage of anaphase 1. So keep in mind these things, because when we will be going further, we will be talking about these things. So if you look at this figure, so during the during the process of meiosis, in the prophase 1, when the chromosomes are have already replicated, so they have doubled. So when the crossing over we will look that if crossing over is taking place, then what will happen, and when there is no crossing over, then what will happen. So if there is no crossing over, then during the anaphase 1, sorry, during the anaphase 1, the centromere, during the anaphase 1, both will go into separate cells, and during the anaphase 2, when the centromere will divide, then each gamete will be having copies of these alleles. But if crossing over is happening, then there is a chance that the segments of the chromosomes will exchange, and if this exchange is taking place, then different portions of the chromosomes will be present. So this is capital R, but in the second chromosome, small r is also present at one side. So similarly, if crossing over is taking place in this cell also, then in the gamete this will be capital R and this will be small r. So when crossing over is taking place, it will be causing recombination, and recombination is creating the diversity. It is giving you new combinations. So there are at the after the process of meiosis and crossing over, there are some non-recombinants and there are some recombinants. And when we will be studying different crosses in different species, animals or plants, we will be looking that there are some recombinants and there are some non-recombinants, but this thing was not known at the time of Mendel. So when the ratios that were not following the Mendelian ratios in the crosses after that were performed by different scientists after the Mendel, so when they were looking that their results are not following the Mendel's results, so they started thinking, and then they proved different concepts, and then they identified that crossing over is taking place and recombinants are produced. So number of recombinants that were appearing in the progeny, they resulted into the identification and giving rise to different new concepts. So that we will be studying in our next lecture. So I think it's enough for today. If you have any question, you can ask during online question answer session. And thank you for now. Allah Hafiz.